We're talking the latest with the developer community.
We cover the latest launches.
This is amazing.
I'd have my coffee and I'd watch this show.
You just want to get started here.
Our aim is to change the game.
I'm looking forward to this one.
Hello, and welcome to AWS On Air. I am one of your hosts, Brian Terry, the DA for Cloud Formation, and I'm joined here with my friend Seema. Seema, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Seema Ramdev. I'm part of Alexa team at Amazon. Let's get started and dive into our topic today, Amazon EMR Serverless.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, Seema, guess what today is?
What?
National Donut Day. So it's actually a holiday. So it's one of my favorites. I love donuts, and I've been looking for this on the calendar. So
Lovely.
yeah, so I've heard we have a very exciting day today. We've got a couple new feature launches to talk about. We've got some exciting products. We've got a lot of cool things happening today. Are you excited about this? As excited as I am?
I am super excited. Apart from donut about the feature launches, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess what we'll start off with some breaking news from Jeff Barr. So we'll do that first. Yeah. So let's do that.
All right. Well, hi, Brian, and hi, Seema. It's awesome that it's National Donut Day today. Unfortunately, we've got a family wedding coming up in like 5 weeks, so definitely no donuts for me. So coming to you today from not quite sunny Seattle. If you haven't seen what's new before, what I like to do is I comb through all of the most recent AWS launches for the week, and then out of dozens and dozens of launches, I just pick a few that I think you're going to find especially interesting. Now, lately, we've been averaging about 8 launches a day, so I've really got to just pick and choose just a couple. If you want to track all of our launches, you can visit our What's New page, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed for that page, even better. This particular week just seemed like it was even more action-packed than usual, so let's jump right in. First breaking news item is some updates to EBS, Elastic Block Store. If you've been an AWS user for any length of time, you probably know EBS already. It's actually been around since 2008. But despite that, we continue to add really big features and important new functions. So last year, we announced a new volume type called IO2 Block Express. This one delivers up to 4 times the throughput, the capacity, and the IOPS. That's short for input-output operations per second, as the IO2 volumes, which are already actually quite performant. So the Block Express volumes give you up to 256,000 IOPS. They give you up to 4,000 megabytes per second of throughput and up to 64 terabytes of storage. Our customers use these for their really mission-critical workloads, things like large Oracle databases, SAP HANA, Microsoft SQL Server, and heavy-duty analytics. So that's where we are so far with these amazing IO2 Block Express volumes. So we added 2 new features that you can now use with these volumes. The first is Elastic Volumes. This is, I think, really, really cool. You can increase the size of your volumes, and you can actually change the IOPS on the fly while you're actively running your app and doing IO to the volume. So you can fine-tune your volumes needs to your app while your app is running and serving traffic and running your business. Other cool feature that you can now use with IO2 Block Express is called Fast Snapshot Restore. The idea here is you get highly predictable performance when you are creating a volume from a snapshot. A lot of our customers use this in environments where they're kind of mass producing volumes from an individual snapshot. So things like a virtual desktop environment where you've got a single snapshot and you need to quickly churn out a whole bunch of volumes from that same snapshot. Dev and test environments are another great example use case for snapshot restore. You can currently use these volumes on 4 different instance types: R5B, the X2IDN, the X2IEDN, and the C7G instances in 10 different regions. And you can read the What's New to learn a lot more. All right, now let's talk about something totally different: quantum computing. Back in 2019, we launched, I think, a really cool, unique service called Amazon Bracket. The thinking behind this was to give you the opportunity to learn more about the really important, super emerging field of quantum computing. And you could go back, you could read my blog post to learn more, but I like to think of a quantum computer as something like a probability machine. Instead of you getting a yes-no binary answer, you get the most probable answer. Now, you can run your quantum circuits on a simulator, or you can run them on an actual physical quantum computer. The thing that you need to know about quantum computers are they're brand new, they're expensive, they're rare, they're hand-built, and they're state-of-the-art. So each different kind of quantum computer is called a QPU, a quantum processing unit. The big news today is we've added access to another kind of QPU. This one is called Borealis, from a company in Canada called Xanadu. The amazing, the cool thing here is that this is the first quantum computer that actually has a peer-reviewed claim to a really cool thing called quantum advantage. And the idea of quantum advantage is that this is the kind of the milestone or turning the corner, that meaning that the quantum computer can actually solve problems that a classical computer cannot. If you read the detailed blog post, the Borealis can solve in 36 microseconds a problem that would take 9,000 years on a supercomputer. Now, to me, I'm kind of old school, and all this sounds just like science fiction. When you read the description of Borealis, it's actually a photonic quantum device. It's got lasers inside. It's got 3 different sizes of fiber optic delay loops, tons and tons of really cool optical stuff, way beyond my brain power to understand, but I'm sure you can figure it out. You can read the very detailed blog post to learn more. Now, back in the reality that's a lot more comfortable to me, we added a new feature to AWS Data Exchange. This is a really cool service that you might not know about. The idea is that you get access to data files and data tables and data APIs from a wide collection of third-party data providers. There's a catalog with well over 3,000 data sets in there. They're spread across 10 categories that range from things like public sector data, automotive data, and telecommunications. You can find data in that catalog that you're interested in subscribing to. You subscribe, you get consistent pricing options. You can use that data to enhance your application. You can run analytics. You can do machine learning against it. All right, that's the background. So what's new? You're probably wondering. Okay, what we're doing is that if you are a data provider, if you are one of the organizations putting data into the data exchange and making it available to AWS customers, you can now have APIs access your data that we now support metered billing for those APIs. So you can charge your customers on a pay-as-you-go basis, and your subscribers to your data can pay based on the number of requests, the number of successful requests, the actual amount of data transferred back to the subscriber based on the amount of data that they requested, or even on custom dimensions that are specific to your kind of data and your data elements. You can read the what's new to learn a whole more about this. That's all I've got for this week. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, we're back, Seema. That was some exciting news from Jeff Barr. So what did you think about all those new exciting releases?
Well, that all sounds really interesting. I'm looking forward how this gonna work out for our customers.
Yeah, the quantum computer sounds super interesting. I personally want to get my hands on it, but I'm always trying to get my hands on all this cool AWS stuff. Yeah. So for our audience, thank you. So at the bottom of the show, you'll see a little ticker to where you can just take 5 minutes and fill out a survey. Let us know what you think, and you could possibly win some AWS credits. I mean, how cool is that?
Super cool.
Yeah, you can even use that on the new quantum computing stuff. So that's even cooler.
Tip.
Yeah. So I think we have a guest coming on that's going to talk about a new feature in EMR. So I think this is going to be real cool, Seema.
Indeed.
Yeah. So So let's talk about let's move into the next segment, and we'll bring in our next guest.
Hey.
So hey, David. Hey,
Hello.
Yeah, so I heard you're an expert with data and you work with EMR.
Well, at least one of those things is true.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, great to be here today. I don't know, I've been in the data space for a while. I think I first started recording data when I was in high school, and I worked at a fiber optic company, and I was testing fiber optic devices and getting readings from them and just recording hundreds of readings and typing them into Excel spreadsheets. So that has been my life for the past 20 years now. It's been great.
Wow, super interesting. So now I understand you're a developer advocate or on the EMR team, and you're going to talk to us about a new feature in EMR, right?
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of background, more relevant background about me, possibly. Been in the analytics space for about a decade. Started a social analytics company here in Seattle. Processed all sorts of Twitter data, all that kind of fun stuff, and have used HBase, MongoDB, Spark, all sorts of fun stuff, and joined the EMR team a few years ago. First as a big data architect to help our customers figure out how to design, build, debug their EMR apps all across the board, everything from Spark to HBase to Presto, and then switched into this developer advocate role recently to help folks understand how best to make use of EMR. And EMR has changed a lot in the past 3 years. It used to be just EMR and EC2. Then we came out with a new deployment option that was EMR on EKS. So if you're running Kubernetes, you can now deploy EMR apps in your Kubernetes cluster. And then if you don't want to worry about infrastructure at all, we now have EMR serverless. And you can just run a job essentially at the click of a button. So pretty awesome.
Oh, super interesting. So you mentioned EMR serverless. What exactly is EMR serverless?
Yeah. We announced this at reInvent last year. So EMR Serverless is a new deployment option for EMR where you can run Spark and Hive jobs without having to worry about provisioning infrastructure. So, if you are familiar with EMR, you're probably familiar with figuring out how to spin up EC2 instances, how to choose from the multitude of instances available, figuring out what network settings to use and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, it turns out a lot of people just want to run Spark jobs or want to run Hive jobs. So with EMR Serverless, it's a new deployment option where you don't have to worry about deploying infrastructure. You don't have to worry about managing infrastructure. You can just run your jobs and get on with your daily life. So pretty awesome. And like I said, we announced it at reInvent last year, and we just made it generally available 2 days ago on Wednesday of this week. So this is definitely nice and fresh.
Yeah, I heard about that announcement too. And you said it supports two different things, right? Spark and Hive, right?
That's correct. Yep. So with EMR on EC2, there's about a dozen different frameworks you can deploy. Anything from Spark and Hive to Presto or Trino and HBase and Flink. So you have all these different options where you can go in and deploy these things and dive into the EC2 instances as you like. But yes, with EMR Serverless, we're just starting with Spark and Hive, as those are some of the more popular frameworks that folks want to run on EMR.
Ah, super cool.
Indeed, quite interesting. So, who would want to use EMR serverless and why?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of our customers are data engineers or data scientists, right? If you work in the data engineering space, you are often running ETL jobs and pulling data in from one place and transforming it and putting it out to somewhere else, or ELT or reverse ETL, all these different options. But data scientists, data engineers are the primary folks that would tend to use EMR serverless, and anybody that's running, Spark jobs, right? So if you have an Apache Spark job that you need to read data in from somewhere and transform it on a large scale, you can do that with EMR serverless. So those are definitely the folks that would typically use EMR.
Ah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. So, so you have EMR serverless, right? And we also have a service called EMR. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two?
Yeah, for sure. It's really a big spectrum. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but with EMR and EC2, you have essentially full control over the entire framework and infrastructure. So when you spin up EMR and EC2, you choose your instances all the way down to, do you want five, I don't know, R5 4XLs or 800 M5D 24XL or whatever you want, right? So that's the nice thing about EMR and EC2 is you have all of this optionality and flexibility. You can run it on, spot instances as well, and there's a lot you can do to kind of dive in and configure those. And you can, SSH in to any of those instances, configure them, install your own software. But that can be a little bit overwhelming for some folks that don't live on a keyboard, right? So with EMR serverless, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just have your Spark code and you say, run this job. And if you want, you can tell it to give you a certain amount of resources, but you don't even have to do that. The service actually scales automatically for you as the job is running. So with more recent versions of Spark, and this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but there's something called dynamic resource allocation. And so you start your job and Spark kind of keeps an eye on things. And if it needs to add more resources, it goes ahead and requests more resources. And with serverless, we just, throw more resources as Spark asks for it. So it's a lot simpler than EMR on EC2 because all you have to worry about really is your application code. And there is some speed up time as well. If you've run EMR and EC2, we have to go and procure EC2 instances and spin them up and install all the software. We don't have to do that with EMR serverless. So the execution time or the spin up time is a lot faster, to the degree that if you have an EMR serverless application running, the job can start within seconds. So you hit go, and even before you can refresh the console, the job starts running. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, this is interesting, and this is quite time saving if it works. It's going to work on its own. How can one start a job?
So there's a few different. Oh, go ahead.
And how long does it take to run for
Yeah.
once in a job? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few different ways. So you can interface with EMR serverless from the command line. So using the AWS CLI, or different SDKs like Bodo 3 or the Java SDK. So if you are building your own apps, you can submit jobs that way programmatically. Or we also have integration with EMR Studio. So you can go into EMR Studio and you can actually create applications and create jobs directly from the console. And so if you don't want to deal with terminal at all, you can go ahead and do it that way. And then, of course, one of the other things we did. Oh, hey, Abhishek. One of the other things we did was we have an Airflow operator ready to go as well with EMR serverless. So if you use Apache Airflow to orchestrate your workflows, you can actually interface with EMR serverless from Apache Airflow today. So that's something that we wanted to have out there and ready because a lot of folks use Airflow to orchestrate their EMR jobs. Whew. Man,
that's super interesting. I mean, this whole concept of using MR and serverless, and then you mentioned Airflow. For our audience and for myself, can you talk a little bit about what Airflow is?
Yeah, Airflow is one of the most popular workflow orchestration tools out there. So back in the early days of computing, we used to use something called cron to schedule jobs. Well, it turns out things get complicated and you need to chain jobs together and stuff like that. So Airflow was a piece of software. I think it probably came out around 2015, maybe a little bit earlier. And I want to say it came out of Airbnb.
Wow.
But yeah, Airbnb donated it to the Apache foundation, and it's now one of the most popular orchestration tools. So you create like flows of jobs inside of Airflow, and it takes care of running those and retrying them if things fail, or scheduling them. So it's definitely one of the more popular ways I've seen that folks use to schedule their jobs. And with all of my work with EMR, I'd probably say 90% of the customers that I worked with were using Airflow.
Oh, wow. That sounds super cool. I might have to get on that. You said it replaces cron. Wow. This is dating myself. That's the only thing I know how to use, right? You just it's cron. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, super exciting. So, I've heard that you have a demo for us today.
I do.
Is that true?
That is very
right.
true. I am. I like to live on the edge of my seat, so we're going to do a live demo.
All right. So
Wow.
live coding. So let's see if we can kick that off then.
All right, sweet. So I'm going to start off with a terminal because that's where I am most comfortable. And what I'm going to do in this demo, I'm going to show how to get started with EMR Serverless in the console. And I'm only going to run 2 commands. So that's how easy this is. So let me go ahead and clear my screen. I'm going to run 2 commands as long as everything goes well. It is a live demo after all. The first thing we need to do is create an application on EMR Serverless. Applications are the different frameworks that you can run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Spark application on EMR Serverless for EMR release 6.6.0. The EMR releases map to different Spark versions. So this is Spark version 3.2. So I've already gone ahead now and created that application. I'm going to save that application ID. And if I do an EMR Serverless, you know what? I said I was going to do 2 commands, so I'm going to do 2 commands. The next thing I'm going to do is run a job. So I'll go ahead and do my start job run. There's a couple things I need here. I need my application ID, which I just created, and then my job role ARN. So this is an IAM role that I can use to execute the job, and it just needs access to S3 for this particular thing. I'm actually going to use some data from the registry of open data on AWS. The NOAA data sets are some of my favorites. So I'm going to hit start job run, and there we go. I can go back and do whatever I am doing for work now. But that's all it took to go ahead and take my code and run it. Let me actually show what's happening behind the scenes here. So if I do an EMR Serverless get application, that shows me the application, and the application is already started. So there's my Spark 6.6 or Spark 3.2 application that started. And if I do EMR Serverless get job run, that job run right now is going to be pending because I just created this application. So the application, when you first create it, is going to take a couple minutes to spin up, right? But that's one of the other things we did with EMR Serverless is we added something called pre-initialized capacity. So if you want your jobs to run within seconds, you can have this pre-initialized capacity in EMR Serverless. And when you submit a job, it runs within seconds. So this job here, it's going to sit in pending until the application gets up and running and is ready to schedule. But while that is going, I'm actually going to switch over to the console and show you how to create an EMR job without using the CLI. So give me 1 second just to stop and reshare here.
Oh, that's interesting. While you're doing that, we got a question from one of our attendees. So can you run EMR notebooks on the new EMR Serverless?
Ah, of course. How did I know that was going to come up? I will say not yet, but we definitely want you to be able to. So that is one of the goals of the EMR Serverless. At GA, you can't run notebooks on it, but that's definitely, we want to have that interactive experience. That's one of the first things that we are going to be working on now that the service is GA. So thank you for asking that. I also want to run notebooks on EMR Serverless so you can have that interactive response time and automatic scaling. So definitely something we want to do. Thank you for asking that. All right, cool. I think we're ready to go to the console now.
All right.
And then is that popped up yet? Because I had to stop and reshare.
Okay. I think it's popping up now.
Sweet. All right.
Awesome.
So this is our lovely EMR console. Folks that use EMR will be used to all these lovely EMR and EC2 settings over here, but we are going to click on this EMR Serverless setting here. With EMR Serverless, it has integration with EMR Studio. if you haven't used EMR Studio, it's good that that person just asked a question about notebooks. EMR Studio is a way to run managed notebooks with EMR and EC2 and EMR and EKS. And with serverless, you can use the EMR Studio to manage your serverless applications. So I'm going to go ahead, click Manage Applications. If you don't have EMR Studio, you can click this nice little orange button here, and we will create and launch an EMR Studio for you to go ahead and manage your applications. This signs you in with IAM. So you just, boom, signed right into the application here. And you can see, let me zoom in a little bit so you can actually see. You can also see these are applications I've created from the command line. So the serverless demo is the one that I think I just created about 3 minutes ago. Yep. And we can see that that one is started. So I can click in here and I can look at my job, and my job is actually now running. The other thing we did with serverless is we have Spark UIs that you can launch from the serverless console. So this will launch a Spark UI for your job that you can go in and debug your job or kind of do whatever you want. Since you can run Hive jobs, we also have the Tez UI that you can launch from here as well. So if you want to do everything in the console, you can definitely do that. Let me show you again real quick. All you need to do to run a job or create an application and run a job in the console. So I'm going to go ahead, copy my S3 script right there. So I've already got a few applications, but let me go ahead and create an application here. I'll do this, my new app. I select Spark, my version of EMR. We're starting with 6.6.0 as we release new versions of EMR. They'll of course show up here in EMR Serverless. And then the big thing here, I can just click Create Application right now, and I get all this configuration right here. I can, of course, customize these as well. So the pre-initialized capacity is what I mentioned. If you want to have a certain amount of capacity ready and waiting to run your EMR jobs, you can change this here. We can have 1, 10, 100 Spark drivers running there. You can customize the size of your driver or the size of your executor. So if you have a good idea of what your workload needs, you can do that there. The other thing that's really important, this auto stop and auto start. So by default with EMR Serverless, if you don't submit a job for 15 minutes, we'll spin down that application and you won't be charged anything. If you submit another job, we'll automatically spin the application back up, but it will take a minute or two to kind of spin up that capacity. You could actually just turn that off. So you could have capacity sitting there ready and waiting for you whenever you want to submit a job, and that job would start within seconds. Or you can change this to 6 hours. Maybe you want to have this capacity ready and waiting for you throughout the day, and then shut down when you go home at night. But I'm going to go ahead and just use the default settings here. So I'll create an application. There we go. That app is creating. And let's see, I can go in here and submit a job. So I'll do this. I have this extreme weather job that I use. I need a job role to be able to run this. And then I just paste in my PySpark script right there. And I hit submit job. And ideally, needed to update one thing. There we go. Now that job can go and run. So there we go. Not only can I do it with 2 commands on the command line interface, but I can do it with 2 clicks on the console as well. And that Spark UI that I popped up earlier, that is actually right here. So this is just an example of the Spark UI, and I can dive in here, look at my application, see how it's doing. There's my Spark app. It's still running. And yeah, I can take a look at that. I can see how many tasks are left. And if I go, or actually, let me go back real quick. On this event timeline here, this is the cool thing with that dynamic resource allocation. You can see all these executors getting dynamically added throughout the course of the job. So it went and listed files on S3, started reading those in. As it decided it needed more capacity, it added more capacity, and it'll spin those executors back down once I'm done. I've been talking for quite a while, so I want to pause briefly.
No. This is quite amazing, because I think what you accomplished was just really cool. You literally went in a console. You had a few features or adjustments you had to make to the job. You launched the job, and all of a sudden, you're actually running this EMR job, and I think that's super cool. So You said it can be run from the command line. You can do it from the console, but is there also cloud formation support for this too?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that. This entire demo that I have set up today, this entire environment, we have an EMR serverless samples repository out on GitHub. So github.com, AWS samples, EMR serverless samples, and we've got CloudFormation templates in there for everything you would need. So we've got kind of like the minimum, bare minimum CloudFormation template there, where you just specify your EMR serverless application and your configuration. And then we've also got, since I mentioned we have Airflow support too, we've got this whole MWAA template that creates everything you need in your EC2 or your AWS account for you. Creates a bucket, creates a VPC, creates the MWAA environment, and can get you up and running. So go check out those templates. There's also a bunch of PySpark examples in here as well. So in this examples folder, I've got some Java API, Python API, and PySpark examples, including that extreme weather script that I am running today.
Oh, it's super interesting. Very cool. So with this being a kind of an all serverless solution, what about costs associated with this? I'm assuming that, because it can spin up and spin down, it's relatively cost effective.
Yeah. You get charged for the runtime of your job and the resources that it used. And that's one thing I actually didn't notice this until quite recently, but you can click on a job and it actually will tell you the total resource utilization for that specific job, which is really neat. So you get charged, per vCPU hour and memory hour that your job is running. So, as long as your jobs are efficient, you can optimize your cost pretty well. If you do have pre-initialized capacity running, you will get charged for that capacity that's running as well. But that's kind of the nice thing about serverless Spark or EMR serverless is I can go in here and click on my application, and I could just go ahead and stop that application, and it would release all the resources, and I could leave that application there and not get charged for it, but still kind of interact with the jobs that are in there and all that kind of stuff. So.
Wow, that is super exciting.
I'm pretty thrilled as somebody that has done a lot of work with Spark jobs and all that kind of stuff. This is it's so easy. The first time that I ran a Spark job through EMR serverless when we had it in preview, I just had this huge grin on my face because I was like, this is it. This is all I have to do.
Yeah, I think this is super exciting too. I've in my previous life, I used to work for a company and we did a lot of data manipulation. And this is something that we tried to build. We actually tried to build kind of this kind of clone of this on Lambda. So I'm glad that you guys are releasing this because there's clearly a reason to have this.
Yeah. And actually, let's do one. Do we have time to do one more quick Airflow demo?
Absolutely. I'd love to hear more about Airflow.
All right. So yeah, with Airflow, I've got a couple, like I mentioned, we've got in the EMR serverless samples, we've got an Airflow operator in there. This will be released as an official Airflow operator now that EMR serverless is generally available, but for the time being, you can just install it from this repository. And we've got a couple sample DAGs in there too. So these are the scheduled jobs that I mentioned essentially. So one of those is just a start job run. So if you already have an application ID, you could just use this EMR serverless start job operator to run a job. This could be pretty cool. For example, if you have some data landing in an S3 bucket and you want to trigger an EMR serverless job, you could certainly do this, with Airflow or with Lambda triggers or something like that, where you just go ahead and kick off this job when a file lands in the bucket, and all you need is that application ID and IAM role. So pretty easy to get started. And then I have this end-to-end example too, which you don't even need an application ID. You can, within the whole Airflow job, you can create an application, you can run multiple jobs and shut the application down. So, there's no resources at all for you to kind of worry about, which is pretty exciting. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like in Airflow. So I've already got this EMR serverless demo in my Airflow environment on Airflow 2.2.2. And if I open that UI, in here we can see my two jobs. I mentioned I have, just that single job and then my end-to-end one. So I'm actually going to go ahead and trigger this end-to-end one right now. And that just kicked off. And if I look at the DAG, you can see this lovely diagram of how the job is going to run. Most Airflow DAGs are a little bit more complicated than this, but this is just a simple example here. And I can click on that and look at the logs for that. So we can see that this actually already went ahead, created the application, started it for me. And then what's going to happen next is the 2 jobs here are going to run, and then it'll shut down. And again, I can go back to Studio here, and we can see there's my Airflow test application that just got created. And you can even see I've got a different release version there too. So this is an older release version of EMR that we were using during the preview. So you can run different versions of Spark if you want to, or different versions of Hive on EMR Serverless, which is pretty sweet. Really nice for testing upgrades and whatnot too. But yeah, I can go into my Airflow test app here. You can see I've got 2 jobs that are scheduled. And again, since this application just started, it takes a bit for the resources to get there, but those jobs will run. That application will spin back down. And again, you can go on with your happy life. One other thing that I showed here too, my extreme weather job finished. Let me go back to that super quick. One other nice thing I want to call out in Studio is we have this clone job button. So if you are trying jobs over and over again, you hit clone job, we populate all that stuff for you, and you just hit go. So this is really nice. If you already configured a job, you just want to run it again, and you can see that job is scheduled, and it's going to start running pretty soon there. So that's pretty awesome to have there too, because you can just clone those jobs over and over again. And then, like I mentioned, here's my job that finished, and I can even go in here. I can download my driver logs, save them locally. So it makes it a lot easier to do all the things that you need to do without having to leave your browser, or if you want to, you can do that as well. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. But there's my standard out. I could open that up and look at it and see the output of the job, and it would show me that I think somewhere in Chad this year had the highest sustained temperature for one day. So pretty fun little script. It gives you like some different locations and what extreme weather they've had. Like I think Mount Washington, New Hampshire had the strongest wind gust at 99 miles an hour or something like that. So
I don't know. I would argue about the hottest places. I mean, I live in Georgia and it's hot all the time.
Pretty much.
So I think we've got some interesting questions from our audience. I guess we'll take a few minutes and answer, and we can talk about those. So I think you touched on this one a little bit. I think this one's describing like if you add a file to S3, it can trigger a Lambda function and then kick off the EMR serverless. That's possible, right? Because we just kind of touched on that a little bit. Right?
Yep. Yeah, totally
Right.
possible, either with Airflow or without. So if you check out the serverless samples, I've got a serverless Python API. So you could have a Python Lambda, and that Lambda, you could have that triggered by a file dropping on S3. And I've got some example code here where you could even create an application and run a job on that application to do whatever you want. So yeah, totally possible to kind of like take a Lambda, call EMR serverless from there, depending on which language you're working on in your Lambda. But yeah, totally possible.
All right. So and we have some other questions from the audience. So let's see. So we'll go to our next one. Let's take a look. All right. So is EMR serverless a target for step functions tasks or event bridge?
I will say not yet, but that's certainly something that we want to do. With EMR, for example, that is a target for step functions, and I believe EMR and EKS is as well. So this is certainly something that we want to add to serverless as well.
Super cool. So thank you for being on the show, and I think it's. Our audience really wants to be able to get our hands on this demo that you showed, the GitHub repository. And are there any blogs or anything else that customers can look at?
Yeah. Just the other day, we've got our GA blog. So we just announced you can use EMR serverless, and it's generally available now. That's on the AWS Big Data blog. So there's that. There's the EMR serverless samples repository that I mentioned. That is a great resource to go and take a look and see example jobs and CloudFormation templates and all that kind of stuff. And then we have put a lot of work into our EMR serverless user guide, and I'll drop that in the chat later too. But if you just Google EMR Serverless user guide, you will see our user guide there, and we have a lot of walkthroughs in there as well, a lot of how-to guides. How to use Hoodie. Apache Hoodie and Apache Iceberg with EMR Serverless, how to use Python libraries, how to use Delta Lake. So we put a lot of effort into trying to make that user guide as useful as possible. So take a look at it. Let us know also how it goes. At the bottom of the docs, there's that provide feedback link. I actually read those. So click on that. Let us know how we can make it better. We really appreciate that. And we're trying to make those user guides as awesome as possible.
Well, this is great. I mean, the people would get to know if they read the feedback there, you're gonna read it, and probably another user guide coming up.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, David, I want to thank you for being on our show and showing us this very cool release from EMR. I know I'm super excited about using it. I think Seema's excited about using it. I think everyone's excited about using it.
I hope so. I'm excited. I'm just going to keep running this like extreme weather job over and over again. But
yeah.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. And I hope folks try it and shout out and let me know how it goes.
All right. And you definitely let me know if Georgia comes to the top of the list of being the hottest.
I will. I think it did for 2021.
All right. Well, thank you again.
All right. Later.
Hi, Seema. That was super interesting.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, it's super exciting. I mean, the whole idea of being able to run these data jobs in serverless, I mean, that's kind of a game changer, I think.
Indeed. And having a clarity on how best you can optimize your solution, how you can work around the cost part, I think that's quite a clarity there on the console.
Yeah. Super exciting. I think it's going to be cost effective for our customers. I think they're going to be able to just kick these jobs off quick. And, like they mentioned in the question, I mean, you can have things trigger this, like S3 that triggers this job. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people gonna go and check out the repository on how this can be created for different Spark and other files.
Absolutely. I think being on the GitHub repository, they have sample templates, things get started. I mean, this is awesome. Like I said, I'm always encouraged to, want to use other things. And I literally want to, after the show, go play around with EMR, and I may do my own data weather calculation.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll thank you again for attending the show. I would love for you to do one thing for me. We would love to hear from you about the show. So if you could take 5 minutes and actually do the survey, you can qualify for AWS credits. It's very simple. We've actually put the URL here down at the bottom. So if you see that, just go to URL, do the survey. We love to hear from you. And like Damon, we actually read these things, and we value your feedback. All right. So, Seema, I heard we have another guest. So or another 2 guests, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about the next one. So I say we just go ahead and jump into it. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Right after. All right. So we're back. So join with us. We have Navas, and we have my good friend Ron, which I've actually known for about 4 years now, which is
exactly. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. So I'll let them introduce themselves. First, Navas, can you tell us
Sure.
about yourself?
Thanks, everyone. Hi, Seema. Hi, Brian. And hey, Ron. My name is Navas. I am a control services specialist based out of Chicago, and I've been with Amazon for about 10 years now.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
And We're also joined by Ron.
Hey,
Ron, can you tell us a
hey,
little about yourself?
I am Ron Davis. I've been with AWS for roughly around 4 years and 3 or 4 days. So I am based out of Dallas, Texas. I cover the central 17 states on control services. Very, very happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And by the way, Brian, happy Donut Day.
Oh, that's right. Happy gotta have a donut somewhere around here. Yeah, happy donut day.
I woke up at 6 this morning and I was like, it's donut day. And I'm just going to get my 2 donuts. I'm going to get my 2 donuts. Man. That's how I knew it was donut day.
That's good stuff.
Well, cool. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on the show today. And I understand we're going to be talking about your service, which is Control Tower, right?
That is correct. So how should we get started on it?
Oh, well, first, let's talk a little bit about what is Control Tower. I mean, I've heard the name before. I'm a cloud formation specialist, essentially, and I've heard of Control Tower. But can you, for the rest of our audience and me, can you tell us a little bit about what Control Tower is?
Sure. And maybe it's helpful for us to start with the why Control Tower was developed. And if you think about our AWS customers, they're doing a number of different activities on AWS. They're building machine learning workloads. Maybe they're running EMR serverless workloads. They're building applications on AWS. But before they can do that, they need to have the confidence that their AWS environment is operationally scalable and is secure. And so usually it falls upon the central IT teams and the cloud teams to build out an environment. And when they have to do it from scratch, it's time consuming and it can quickly get complicated as an organization grows in scale, like more teams, more accounts, and we also need to try and standardize each account. So back in 2019, we launched AWS Control Tower, which is our service which builds out a secure, well-architected, multi-account environment. And with AWS Control Tower, you can quickly provision new accounts and apply controls and guardrails.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So who should be using Control Tower?
Yeah, I would probably say just about any AWS customer that wants to standardize their network, anybody that wants to establish some form of a security posture that they can apply and reapply across different accounts. I mean, some customers, they start off with, of course, just a few accounts, maybe even one account. But some customers, they are coming into Control Tower with multiple accounts, hundreds of accounts, and they want to figure out a way to actually apply that security posture across all of those accounts and be able to maintain that. If you did that the manual way or outside of Control Tower, you could do it. It's just very time consuming and laborious. So the actual goal is so that the customer can actually do that with a little bit of automation. And being that Control Tower is a managed service, it helps to balance out that responsibility model that AWS helps the customer to actually enable them for their services. So.
Yeah, so Brian and Seema, so actually, like, just to Ron's point, it is everyone. Security is job zero, as we say at Amazon, and everyone needs to have a secure environment that they can work off of and extend.
Very cool.
Very cool indeed. So if I have to add Control Tower to an existing account, how do I do that?
Sure. We actually have a demo that we'll show later, where we can show you how to enroll an existing account into Control Tower. There are a few prerequisites that need to be met, where you shouldn't have config delivery and record a channel, existing one enabled in the account. But once that's disabled and you meet some other prereqs, you can enroll an existing account that's outside of Control Tower, and you can bring it into Control Tower, where Control Tower will apply its controls and guardrails. And then something else that I did not mention too about Control Tower is that Control Tower, being that it sets up a well-architected environment, also sets up the centralized logging account, and this centralizes all of the logs from each account. So when you enroll an account into AWS Control Tower, you will find that the activity in this new account is also being tracked within the centralized logging account. So that's something that's pretty cool with Control Tower.
Yeah, that's true. And adding to that, even if you don't necessarily have an existing account or you don't have necessarily what we call a landing zone, it's as easy as going to your AWS Management Console, typing in Control Tower, and then going to clicking a button basically that says Set Up Landing Zone. In about 60 or 90 minutes or so, you'll have a Control Tower set up inside that environment, and then you'll be able to build out more accounts from there.
Super interesting.
Great. So will it work with all kind of existing resources that one has, or does it have limitations?
Great question, Seema. And there's no limitations. It will work with existing resources. So if you have existing workloads within your existing account, you can enroll your existing account and into a Control Tower environment. What Control Tower will give you is the controls and guardrails, which are based on service control policies and config rules. And you'll see in the demo that I'll show in a few minutes, I'll show you the detective guardrails, which are config rules, and the preventive guardrails, which are service control policies.
Yeah. So you can have a company that has IoT devices. It'll Control Tower be just fine for helping them manage that type of environment. You could have, a environment that has multiple websites, for example, multiple maybe running a retail environment. Control Tower will work for that. Pretty much any type of AWS environment that you have set up, Control Tower can support it.
Yeah, and this is super exciting. You're talking about bringing in existing accounts. I'm assuming this is a new feature, right? Because this hasn't always been the case with Control Tower, right?
Sure. Well, we've had it for quite some time now, and I think it was launched maybe about 1.5 years or so, where you could enroll multiple accounts into AWS Control Tower. It showed up maybe in 2020 or so. But we can actually, like if you have an OU with multiple accounts and none of these accounts are enrolled into Control Tower, we can actually visit the Control Tower UI and register all of the accounts underneath this organizational unit, all at one go. And yes, it might take a couple of hours, but let's say you have 50 accounts. We don't need to individually enroll each account. You can just execute the re-register button, and that will enroll all 50 accounts into Control Tower.
That's super interesting. And it brings me to my next question. It's like, how easy is it to deploy Control Tower?
Ron, do you want to take that one?
Oh yeah, that goes back to the 60 to 90 minutes or less, where you're able to basically click on Set Up Landing Zone on that Control Tower homepage, and then from there, like Navas was saying, you go through a couple of checks. Control Tower goes through a couple of checks in the background. They're going to checking CloudTrail, AWS config, making sure that it's not already enabled at the organization level or basically at that management account level. If it is enabled at that management account level, then it doesn't want to overwrite what you have enabled. So you want to disable that temporarily so that Control Tower can enable it on your behalf. Again, it's a managed service, so it does want to kind of help structure that for you. So it's good that you have CloudTrail. It's good that you have AWS config enabled, but it also wants to be able to help you to manage that on your behalf so that you can then apply things like guardrails after Control Tower is deployed.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's cool. So can we customize Control Towers? Is it possible?
Another great question. Thank you.
Another very good question. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one that our customers and partners always ask us. How do you customize Control Tower? Because Control Tower will give you a baseline environment. It'll give you guardrails and controls, but customers often want to customize the environment further. And so they're looking for a standard approach to customize new accounts provision from Control Tower as well as existing ones. And we have a few different ways where you can customize your environment. You can use what we call Control Tower lifecycle events. And a lifecycle event is very similar to a CloudWatch event, but as soon as an account is added to a new OU, or maybe it's created, this will trigger a lifecycle event, which you can then execute Lambda functions or CloudFormation templates or any kind of custom workflows that you may have. The second, we have a couple of frameworks. We have the customizations framework for Control Tower, which allows customers using CloudFormation to customize accounts as they're getting provisioned. And then we also have Account Factory for Terraform. So customers that are using Terraform workflows can plug into this Account Factory for Terraform and customize their environments. And we just launched a new feature with Account Factory for Terraform just today, where you can actually customize your shared accounts or core accounts for Control Tower. And when I say shared accounts and core accounts, I'm talking about the security and centralized logging accounts that Control Tower sets up for you. And Ron, maybe you can share some other ways to customize the Control Tower.
Yeah, those are some of the main ways that I've seen customers actually customize Control Tower. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Sure.
And it's super interesting. It sounds super flexible. I mean, you have this like really cool and powerful tool, but yet it's very flexible to meet the needs of our customers. How much does this tool cost? So can you talk a little bit about cost?
Yeah. Usually the customer is like, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Come on, you can tell me. Come around back. Just let me know. So there's no additional charge for using Control Tower itself, the Control Tower to service. What the customer is actually paying for is the underlying services. So Control Tower, consider it, just like we said earlier, as a dashboard. Under that dashboard, you have several services that roll up to support best practices around, again, that network and security best practice posture on behalf of the customer. And so those underlying services like Service Catalog, which is enabled on behalf of Control Tower so that the customer can provision accounts, for example, that is a service that has its own separate costing structure, if you will. So that's kind of how Control Tower actually works with respect to costs.
All right.
This is great. So if one chooses to get started with it, how can one go about it?
Awesome. Well, you just need to visit the AWS console, find Control Tower, and is my screen sharing? Or
yeah, so I heard you have a demo, so we can actually pull that in and answer that question together. Super cool. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Yeah, let's show us how this thing
got
works.
the segue going on perfectly.
Thanks. So you can see AWS Control Tower is a service. You can easily find it from the AWS console. And if you search Control Tower, it'll be right there. I'm not going to walk you through setting up Control Tower, but just as Ron mentioned, it only takes about 90 minutes to set up an existing Control Tower environment into an existing organization, or you can set it up brand new into one of your AWS root accounts. But when you launch Control Tower, it's going to give you a dashboard that looks just like what I'm sharing on the screen. You will be able to view all organizational units under Control Tower, your accounts, and you can see that all of my accounts are enrolled into Control Tower. And if I go back to the dashboard, you will see a good summary of what guardrails are applied. And lucky for me, I have no non-compliant resources. So everything is registered.
Perfect scenario.
Thanks. Great for a demo. But what I wanted to show you was it's quite complicated if you had to go in and apply config rules and service control policies onto a custom landing zone. But with Control Tower, applying guardrails, and I'm going to pick some of our elective guardrails and ones that are config rules, just because they can apply in parallel. All you have to do to apply this guardrail, and this was is let's pick the right category.
So, I mean, and just to backtrack a little bit,
Sure.
talking about guardrails, like we're talking about guardrails in the console. Can you explain a little bit about what guardrails are?
Ron, do you want to take that
Yeah,
one?
so a guardrail is essentially and I try not to use all of the AWS acronyms because we need to make an epiphany bridge between the acronym itself and everyday life. So you can kind of consider guardrails as a standard policy that you could apply. Or some type of configuration that you could apply across different accounts that is essentially standardized no matter where you actually put it. So if you kind of consider a control tower as the architecture for a home, for example, you could take a guardrail and apply that guardrail to several rooms inside the home that say, hey, this room has to have a limitation of maybe the door can be opened, but it can't be, locked from the outside or something like that. Or you could come up with a guardrail that you could apply to, all the bathrooms in the house. So the second floor versus the first floor, et cetera. And you could think of those floors in the home as, like Navas was explaining earlier, as organizational units, right? So the organization as a whole is that home, is that architecture, that control tower is helping you to manage. But within those homes, you take these guardrails that you can make either mandatory and/or simply prevent people from, or accounts in this particular case, from being able to perform certain actions on. So
interesting.
Yeah. So the guardrails are, they're there to give you some controls and protect your resources from unauthorized entries, and making sure, like, we're actually, you can actually apply data residency guardrails from Control Tower, and this protects the data and confirms that the data is not moved from one region to another. And that's especially important for some of our enterprise customers that need to meet compliance and regulatory requirements.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as you can see here, I've been applying guardrails just as Ron has been chatting. and that's how simple it is to apply guardrails in a control tower.
As simple as that. That guardrail is applied across an organizational unit that could have hundreds of accounts. Imagine trying to do that one by one. Just be too laborious to try to maintain it over time.
And now, I think I'm going to show you another demo. And here, this is another environment where we will try and show you how to enroll an existing account into Control Tower. I think, Seema, you were very interested in that topic.
Yes.
Yes. So let's see how to do that.
All right.
It's loading up. And here, I actually have more accounts. And I wanted to show you all something different about this Control Tower environment. I wanted to show you one where it failed. And the reason why this failed is because one of the very first steps that you're supposed to execute before you enroll an account is to make sure that Control Tower, or you set up the AWS Control Tower execution role within the existing account. Once that's set up, then Control Tower can assume that role to set up its resources within the existing account. So that's why this is important. And now, all I have to do to enroll, so I went in behind the scenes and I created an AWS Control Tower execution role just for information. And so now all I have to do is visit the control account factory, click on enroll account, provide the email, and I'm just going to say Brian Perry.
Why not?
What a coincidence. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And it's all we're going to enroll these accounts into the sandbox accounts.
Awesome.
And that's it. That's as simple as it is. And now Control Tower is enrolling an existing account into control tower.
Exactly. With the following network configuration that you can see the assumption around a particular VPC and the assumption around what regions that particular account can operate in.
I think what's cool part for me is like you have this central dashboard, and just like you show that there was just one account not enrolled, but you had the other accounts enrolled. I think it's very useful to have this kind of central dashboard in which you can just lay out all your accounts. You can find out which one's not enrolled. You can enroll them. I think that's a real powerful feature of Control Tower.
Awesome. Yes. And lastly, something about Control Tower. So it's enrolling. The other part, I guess I would like to show you both is, and I think it's exciting from Ron's and my perspective, is the fact that if you look at the sandbox OU, it says that 1 out of 4 accounts are governed by Control Tower. And if I wanted to take the shortcut, instead of having to enroll a single account, I can simply click on re-register OU, and it will register all of the accounts all at one go without us having to even create the AWS Control Tower execution role.
Ah, very cool.
Wow. Yeah, you just answered the question I was about to ask.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's just super cool. I mean, like you said at the beginning, when I asked the question, who should use Control Tower? I mean, based on what you've just shown in this demo and how easy it is to get started, I'm in the person everyone should use it, including myself. I'm just one guy.
Yeah. If you have a business, if you're concerned about your data, if you're running services, it should be run on a Control Tower environment. It's going to give you the confidence on your resources that are running within each account. It's going to give you controls, it's going to give you guardrails. And then from there, you can extend it and customize it further with our customizations frameworks.
Exactly. Or the best practice architecture. You don't want to go through all the heavy lifting yourself. You want something to start from. Control Tower gives you that.
Amazing. Truly amazing. Yeah, I think I'm just sad that this wasn't released like 4 or 5 years ago. Because if it was, I would like a hero. Just a push button, I would have had governance across my organization.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. So, are there any blogs or any sample code around getting started with Control Tower? Anything that can be useful for some of our customers?
That's a great question. We do have a lot of material, and one of the documents that I actually would encourage everyone to take a look at and glance is our cloud environment guide. And that walks customers through a journey on how to set up their cloud environment at a high level. So it talks about pillars that include networking, security, identity and access management, the different areas that you should consider when building out a multi-account environment or landing zone.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Very cool.
And we also have some other links on the account factory for Terraform. We also can share some links on the customizations for Control Tower. And with Control Tower, we also support Control Tower solutions on the marketplace. And so this is great for many of our customers that are already using marketplace solutions, and they would like to use it on a Control Tower environment. And so how do you do that? And so we already have defined best practices on how to build and launch these solutions in a multi-account environment.
Very cool. And I also read somewhere, kind of linked this to our previous guest, is that I heard this works with EMR serverless, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, of course. So as I was saying, before you can run any of these machine learning, you need to have the confidence that your environment is secure. So with a Control Tower environment, you can launch it, run it, and then with the customizations framework, you can automatically set up an EMR Studio environment in the new accounts that are provisioned by Control Tower. And when the data scientist simply gets access to the account, they'll be able to log into EMR Studio and launch their EMR serverless workloads right from there. And that's how you can automate the entire process from start to finish for your end users.
Super cool. And it just kind of brings up the fact again that, you can have two different AWS services and actually bring them together to create a solution you can customize. I think this is awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, that answers all my questions. How about you, Seema? Oh, I think.
Did we lose her?
Yeah. I think maybe.
The other thing I would like to also say, I guess, is we also have a built-on control tower program for our partners, and many of our partners are developing custom solutions for control tower environments, and we would encourage them to become a part of the built-on control tower program and generate and develop more innovative and creative solutions that can accelerate our customers' goals on AWS.
Oh, interesting. So I do have one more question. Do you have a partner program for Control Tower? I mean, is there?
Ron, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, literally called Built on Control. Yeah, exactly. Literally called Built on Control Tower Partner Program. Yeah, spelled out exactly as it provides, and that's where you see partners coming in and building custom solutions that are on the backbone of the Control Tower framework, if you will. And so from there, what I've personally seen is partners with their own kind of customized solutions that they can provide to their customers, with respect to Control Tower as a whole. Right?
Yeah, and these solutions can cover anything from custom guardrails, networking solutions, better monitoring and tracking systems, identity and management, and it really helps the customer get like a completely customized environment that meets their needs.
Exactly. You might find customers that tend to have, going back to what I was saying earlier about businesses that are kind of wrapped around a particular service that we may have. So, for example, Amazon Connect, you may have customers that are, kind of a part of their business is wrapped around there. And so what ends up happening is the partners that we have also help to build and customize Control Tower better to better fit their use case. And so you find that a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ron and Navas, for being on our show today. I mean, super interesting when you talked about a Control Tower. I'm super excited to use it. I know our audience is, and thank you for being on our show. And like they said, basically you can, check out Control Tower in the console. There are a ton of blogs. There are a lot of ways in which you can research and find out about Control Tower. But thank you for being our guest. And
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us here. And I'm going to go have a donut.
Yes, have a donut. Yeah. It's donut day.
Yeah, I'm excited now. I can have a donut.
All right. Well, bye
Thanks
for now,
guys.
Time.
Thanks.
Woo, Seema. Well, that was pretty cool. I mean, that was super cool to learn about Control Tower. What did you think?
Well, this was super interesting. How we can put guardrails and how the customers can do different things and make their data secured, and everybody wants that, especially these days.
Yeah, and that was a great question you pulled up about bringing in existing resources and using accounts. That's something that I didn't think was possible with Control Tower, but you learn something new every day.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on AWS.
All right. Well, once again, we've come to the end of the show, and I'm going to ask you all to do one more thing for me, and that would be to take 5 minutes to do the survey. If you take 5 minutes to do the survey, you can qualify for AWS credits. I mean, I think it's a trade-off. And, we listen to you, just like Damon said, we listen to you, we read you, we try to make the show better. You guys are very important to us because we love you all.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So thank you everyone for visiting our show. I'm actually going to leave and get my donut, and then I will be doing serverless EMR for the rest of the day. So thank you again, and we'll be seeing you the next time on AWS and On Air. And bye for now.
Bye for now.
My cat's saying bye too, so he says bye.